Do you want to play a broken, easy to use party build at endgame? You are in the right place. The Tycoon Legion build wrecks almost any late game boss out there with simple and yet effective strategies. I tested this build in the last 2 trials and even the final boss and completely decimate them with this mind-blowing setup. A build that can easily deal 40 to 55k damage on a single normal attack. The Tycoon Legion build is one of the strongest hybrid physical party builds in the entire game, hitting enemies with optimized and boosted almighty critical damage that can't be blocked or repelled. A build that is easy to set up and has a simplistic approach in combat and an absolute broken build at the same time. Consists of a full lineup of Tycoons to maximize the damage while maintaining its effectiveness in combat by retaining the key buffs and sustaining spells, ready for the hardest challenges in the game. If you are looking for an easy setup that will not require any hard effort or strategies to decimate the endgame, this is the best build that you can get. The protagonist will be the main damage dealer of the party, wielding the first Tycoon in this setup. The exclusive protagonist passive is Alchemy, which increases your money gains per kill in Overworld. We all know this by now, especially if you are following my farming guides. The skill Gold Rush is going to be our bread and butter attack, a skill that deals heavy physical almighty damage with a high chance of dealing a critical hit rate to an enemy. I cannot stress how broken this skill is alone, since with the right setup, you will be dealing critical hits 90% of the time, and the said attack is unblockable or can't be repelled since it is an almighty damage. You will be dealing tons and tons of damage while giving you extra turns when scoring critical hits, giving you the ability to spam attacks and punish your enemies. The critical trait innate passive doubles your chances of scoring critical hits, making your Gold Rush attacks even more ideal. On top of this, the almighty boost passive strengthens your almighty damage by 20%, boosting the firepower to skyrocket even further. When it comes to sustaining the party, you don't need any healers because of the item connoisseur passive, which doubles item effects potency. So using general medicines or spirit and great spirit dust is more than enough, healing 400 to 600 HP to patch up your party without in need of a dedicated healer. The other passives are farming passives such as Lucky and Luckier Finds, which increases the drop rate of common and rare items by 20%. This also applies in overworld battles, so keep this in mind. We do have the same archetype lineage present in the lineup, so slotting in Heat Up is optimal in this build to boost our physical skill attack damage exponentially. To make sure that we are dealing with consistent critical hits, slotting in Diligent Discipline is suggested. Sense of Kinship will take the 3rd slot to boost our raw attack by a mile, since this passive adds more attack when the same archetypes are present in a lineup. Slotting in Front Boost in the last slot to have an additional 10% physical skill attack to your allies, which is always the case in this setup. We are going to use all resets so you can dispel enemy buffs. I would suggest equipping Fortune God's Abacus, which you can farm in the final dungeon, or any Abacus that strengthens the Gold Rush attack in exchange for using more gold per attack. Money is not an issue in this game, and if you are following my farming guides, you are already drowning with money at this point. I suggest equipping the best equipment that you have, ideally the ones that boost strength or luck and boost physical and status ailments resistance. Equipping items that repel or block the Tycoon's elemental weaknesses is highly suggested as well. The only must-have item in here is the Gambler's Manual, which you can easily get from the Coliseum ranked matches. This accessory doubles your critical damage, so it is highly suggested in this setup. Stroll is going to be your second main damage dealer, wielding another Tycoon. Since the innate abilities of Tycoon are identical, heading straight to Stroll's inherited abilities. Stroll's inherited skills are identical to the protagonist aside from the Formation of Vigor placed on the last slot. He is going to be our main attack buffer in this lineup. The same equipment idea applies to Stroll, and if this is your first playthrough, you do not have multiple Gambler's Manual, so stick to Strength or all stat boosting equipment or to the one I suggested previously. Hulkenberg wields a Tycoon archetype, but aside from damage, she is going to be our main cleanser and buffer in this lineup. Her inherited skills will be Heat Up, Diligent Discipline, but she has Shelter Formation to buff the entire party's defense. Late game fights usually spit a lot of debuffs to your party, so I suggest slotting in Dekunda to cleanse anyone in your party and perform optimally. Nothing special going on with Hulkenberg's equipment, just follow my early suggestions and you are good to go. But still, I am posting my setup currently for her. Heismay is going to be the last party member and the main debuffer and also a status cleanser in this lineup. Slot in Heat Up and Diligent Discipline for the first 2 slots, and then Vidyartha will take on the 3rd slot to lower a target's attack and defense by 2 ranks. As mentioned, he is going to be another cleanser in this party, so Penpatra is highly suggested. This skill will get rid of the nasty status elements applied to your party members. While you do have an option replacing Diligent Discipline with Debilitate if you want to maximize your debuffing potential. Heistmate will be equipping the same type of equipment that I suggested beforehand. However, I suggest equipping Heistmate with a Full Moon Medal to have a revitalize effect and regain MP every turn, since he will be draining his MP quickly by casting debuffs after debuffs. As mentioned previously, one of the main strengths of this build is its simplicity in terms of general combat strategies. At the start of a battle, cast Vidyartha to lower down the attack and defense of a certain target. Make Stroll cast Formation of Vigor to boost the party's attack by 2 ranks. The protagonist will then start using the Gold Rush attack, dealing tons and tons of damage since the target was debuffed and the whole party has been buffed. Hulkenberg can either use Gold Rush as well or buff the party. She is rather flexible and use her depending on your needs. When Heistmate takes his turn again, you can either use Debilitate if you have slotted it or use the Gold Rush instead. Stroll will attack, adding serious damage to targets. You will have a lot of turns in the process when using this setup because your party members will always be dealing with critical hits, so bursting down bosses would be an easy task. The Tycoon Legion is truly a broken build, and I just can't understand why it is so overpowered like this, and maybe capitalism is indeed one of the fuel of this world. But if you are looking for an optimized physical build without any royal archetypes involved, or want to know the best endgame farming spots, click on these videos and I will catch you on the next one.